What's up, y'all? Welcome to another Successful Sundays. I'm, of course, your host, Coach AJ, Dope Life Coach, the dopest life coach out there. And today we're going to be talking about the episode that I had for my podcast this week. I heard y'all, I got the feedback, and I figured what better way to continue this conversation than have it on the Successful Sundays. So before we get right into it, we are going to take some deep breaths and just ground ourselves. All right. So I want you to breathe through your nose and out through your mouth. We're going to do it 3 times. All right. So if I invite you to close your eyes if you want to. I'm going to close down mine. In through your nose, out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Yeah, we got to clear that energy out. Got to let all that, maybe a bad energy, bad vibes going, let that all out. So today, our episode that I had on the podcast, it was regarding cutting people off and how it could actually be more dangerous to your self-improvement journey and your self-improvement chapter. And I heard y'all in the feedback and I listened very well to what you said. And I think there was a bit of a miscommunication, but if you had watched the episode, you would have noticed that I did say if there's any reason for you to leave due to a traumatic situation, any type of abuse, this was not, connected to that. I said, by all means, you need to do what you got to do and get out there. This is for those who are just completely cutting people off due to maybe things that they've heard or seen and collectively think that this is the best way to not communicate. We've lost the art of communication. And I mentioned a couple of key things that I'm going to talk about them in more depth today. But I want to also start off with an affirmation if you're cool with that, because of course, Successful Sundays is all about setting yourself up for the week ahead. I don't know about y'all. Right now in my city of Toronto, it is hot. We are going through a heat wave. I do apologize if you hear the AC or the fan, the dehumidifier in the background. Your girl is going through a heat wave and she's hot. So I am not turning it off. Typically I would, but yeah, not today. So I want to start off with the affirmation for the week and just kind of help us ground ourselves, ground our thoughts, our spirits, our soul, our energy. I am safe enough to speak, strong enough to stay, and grounded enough to hear, even when it's hard. Th- The point of this episode, and kind of tying with the affirmation, is how often we glorify cutting people off versus actually having those very difficult conversations, versus actually saying, you know what, I didn't really appreciate you doing X, Y, and Z. Actually using our words, setting those boundaries, and not thinking that everything is just disrespect. We have labeled not like situations that we've been through as the same as others. And obviously, we're being triggered to some degree. But the art of communication has kind of been lost. I remember being a kid and just being on public transit and wearing headphones because everyone else was talking so loud. That was the whole point of it for myself. And now if even if I take it off, I'm pretty sure people are hearing word for word what I'm listening to because you could hear a pin drop. Communication has almost slightly become obsolete. And even now that we have a lot of ways of communicating, we've even shrunk it down even more to where we're not even communicating clearly and getting our thoughts out and our feelings out. So I want to mention one particular viewer, and I apologize if I say your username incorrectly. NODE underscore room. They asked, "How do I position myself to cross paths with those with more spiritual people?" And I'm going to go into the answer of that because I think this also relates back to what I've been talking about, the communication aspect of how important it is for us to communicate because it ties into this so well. Kind of going into the mindset a little bit for a moment, unpacking how we now think the healing culture should be, because this part may sting a little bit. So many of us are focused on healing, but we're not even really going out there to try out how our healing could be in the world. And we're so focused on being healed. But what if you're just actively healing? And I've kind of talked about this a lot when it comes towards episodes and content I've created. Oftentimes that we're so focused on the healing process that we're not willing to go out back into the world and test certain things. And part of that is communication. Part of that is you're gonna have those tough conversations. You can't just run away from them now that you're healed. You have to face them because it could reoccur more than once. And I know for myself personally, I lost the art of communicating when I started my healing journey, or I started my self-improvement journey, because I kind of isolated a lot out, and I isolated myself. But the more that I realize how important having people around me, and I want to preference by saying this, not just having any and anybody around me, but having people that supported me, that loved me and cared for me. Yes, I had to remove myself from environments and remove myself from people, but it doesn't go without saying that I have not, and I said this in episode as well, that you could still talk about it. If fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me two times, I can't put the blame on you. At that point, I'm out. That's J. Cole, by the way. At a certain point, I gotta just say to myself, okay, no, like, I'm not boo boo the fool. I gotta take myself out of that situation. And that's not what I'm saying when I say like it, cutting people off can be so dangerous. That scenario is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just actually speaking. Because tying into social media, we've taken on so much information now. I feel like some of us are going through like a system overload where we're receiving so much, and it's so easy, and it's in our hand because it's in our phone to receive so much information, that we haven't been able to take a step back and just think. We've lost the compassion, we lost the clarity, we lost the kindness. And at times when we're taking all that information, we're internalizing it, but are we actually thinking, okay, is this gonna work for me? Because as much as information that you could take information from me, and it may not work for you, but it may work for 10 other people. You know what I mean? And hearing about how people are just cutting off. They're not even, "Ooh, you messed with me once. Okay." Again, assess the situation. I'm never ever gonna say that you should stay in a messed up situation. I'm one that, like, okay, again, fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me two times, can't put the blame on you. I gotta hold myself accountable in that situation. You feel me? But at the same time, in the same breath, I can't help but think how many of us have walked away from maybe some valuable information that could help us push forward. Maybe we've walked away from maybe some important information that we just needed to hear. And at times, yeah, yo, you could definitely decide to just sever ties, but you can have a conversation of, let's just talk about it. And if they don't want to do it, cool. And if you don't want to do it, that's cool. But I'm saying, like, let's step away from no longer communicating. I had a conversation with someone, and they watched the episode and they said, "You're absolutely correct. Like, we've lost that art of just sitting down and having conversation. We've lost that art of working conflict out. We lost that art of just having compassion. We've lost it." And I want to say, hey, yo, it is not your whole entire fault in any way, shape, or form. The world is fucked up. The world is so messed up right now, where I can understand if you're angry. I can understand if you're tired. I can understand if you want to cut a person off because you're just over it and you don't want to waste your time, being in that energy. I totally get that. I totally get that. But at the same time, I can't help but think, again, going back to how much information we consume. You know, oddly enough, I hear conversations with the younger generation. I'm a millennial, I'm 37, and I hear people say, like, y'all had it, like, I see old videos, especially on social media. I see, like, it seemed like you guys were very happy. Yeah, because we didn't have a computer in our pocket. We didn't have it at that time. It was more, if community was pushed to the forefront, conversations was pushed to the forefront, bridging the gap was pushed to the forefront. Family, there was moments, and I remember in my city as a kid, Sunday, most stores were closed. That was a day for you to be with your family. That was a day for you to hang out with your homeboys and homegirls on the street and go bike riding and have popsicles in the summer or play in the snow when it was the wintertime. We spoke. We used our imagination. We had creativity. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, I get it. Again, technology has to come forward. I get that. But I can't help but think, like, those nostalgia videos that I keep seeing, and people in the comments saying, "Man, it was the good old days." Why do we think that those days were so important? Not just because we were younger. It was the vibe of it. It was the camaraderie. It was the community. It was the moments where we would sit on a porch for hours. You knew there was no way that you could text your mama and tell them that you arrived at a place. You just knew you had, like, you just trust the the, like, I don't know if you just trust the energy and you trust God so much. You knew your kid was going to come home back then, and you knew your child, as a child, you knew that you had to come home before the sun went down. That was the indication, ooh, the street lights are about to pop off. We need to ride our behinds home, or we need to start making our way home. That type of togetherness has been lost and severed. It's not there anymore. I'm not totally like gonna blame social media, but I have to hold social media accountable. I have to hold how much information we're taking in accountable, and how we're not allowing ourselves to just sit back and be for a moment. We think that we constantly have to be we think that we constantly have to be productive all the time. I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was working on three podcast episodes for the coming months. I schedule things in advance. With my schedule, it's the best way that I can do it. And I couldn't help but think at one point, like, I'm getting tired. It was 9 o'clock at night, but I had other things that I was doing throughout the day. And my plan was to sit down and chill and just bang these out. Yo, why did I all of a sudden realize as I was uploading my podcast episode to YouTube that the blasted thing had audio issues? When I tell you I shut my computer and I sat down on my couch, I said, we will do this another day. We will do this another day. We think that we have to consume ourselves with busy. We don't. We feel we've gotten to this like hamster wheel rat race type of thought process. Shout out to Bob Marley. He has a song called Rat Race. If you haven't heard it, go and listen to it, because I think it was written in the 70s and it still relates to 2025 and how we're constantly in a rat race of life. And we crave that again, we crave that 90 nostalgia because it was slow. It was chill. Like it was when people say it was the good old days, it was. I can't lie to you. I miss those days. Sometimes I'm like, yo, tap the phone, give me a flip phone. I rather take that than have all this information. There's moments I have to take this device and plop it in my bedroom and leave it there plugged in just because I need a break. It's just too much. And again, going back to the whole point of why it could be so dangerous is because we're consuming so much, we're so fed up, we're so irritated, we're so annoyed. It starts with self, right? So imagine for a moment, I'm gonna paint a picture for you. If you took a step back and you just put yourself first and you poured into yourself and you lived a slower life, how would you feel? Like, yo, for real, take a second. How would you honestly feel? You feel less irritated. Your nervous system will go back to being, well, or not even maybe going back or being regulated for the first time. You'll be out of flight or flight mode. You may even sometimes have a teeter totter between it because you think that you should be doing something. I know this from experience where you feel as if the moment you rest and you're finally chilling, all of a sudden you're kind of like, bro, I swear I'm supposed to be doing something. And then you just get hit in your head. No, you're not. What you're doing right now is exactly what you're doing. Because I don't know if you know, but rest is productive. And even though you could do rest by yourself, you could rest within community. You can rest within your loved ones. You can rest within those who care about you. Whether it's a phone call that you're on with your homegirl. I do this all the time with a lot of my homegirls. I'll be on the phone with them for like 2 hours. Or if you're on the phone with, or if you're just hanging with your partner, or you're doing something with the kids, or you take your niece and nephew out, you hang with your parents, whatever it is, there's so many forms of rest, is my point, and there's so many forms of filling up your cup. And then when you have those difficult moments and you have to have those difficult conversations, you're not just met with, oh, I can't deal with this, I'm cutting everybody off. Like, I'm actually going to have a moment and I'm actually going to work through it. Now, again, I want to preface before y'all come for me, I don't mean that you can't cut people off. I'm just saying there's certain circumstances where we're so quick and easy to cut a person off, and we're missing that communication component. So going back to the listener here, NODE_room, that left me a comment. And the comment that they left was, how do I position myself to cross paths with more spiritual people? So we kind of talked about that a little bit, but I want to go in depth with what I said as a reply. And then we're going to just, like work through that and be in the comments if you have any feedback as well. I said like you attract aligned souls when you embody the frequency. That's not what I said. Whoop. Sorry, I apologize. What I said. I don't even know where that even came from. That's from a video I'm about to make. Not y'all getting a little sneak peek to my videos. Jeez, whatever. It's all good. We family here. I said great question. To cross paths with more spiritual people, you just have to start aligning yourself in environments and activities that nurture your own spiritual growth. This might be journaling, meditation groups, communities. I talk about communities. Y'all heard me say that in personal or online. Let's preference on that because there's options now, right? Practice being more open and authentic daily. Often we're focused on the energy with intent. Often we where we focus our energy with intention is where right connection starts to begin. I will say this: the one thing I've learned when it comes towards building connection and finding the environments that I'm meant to be with, it started when I started being honest with myself, authentic, and being very intentional with who I wanted to be around. And it wasn't I wanna say this, I know Drake says no new friends. I disagree. You could find new friends and new communities that tap into new parts of you that you are growing into, right? So I mentioned journaling, I mentioned meditation. You could do meditation groups online, you could do communities. I have the Living Dope community that where a bunch of us black women meet together virtually, right? I'm working on something in personal, but in the meantime, it's virtually, and we work on things that us as black women that we go through, right? And it's just something as simple as that. But when you start matching your energy with the person you want to become, the person that you crave, and you start reaching out to those environments, you'll find yourself connecting even more with people than you ever have before. So I invite you to do that. I definitely invite you to do that. Talking about journaling, I have a couple journal prompts for you. If you have a piece of paper, if you have your phone out, put this in your notepad. And I'm going to put this in descriptions as well so that you can, try to do this throughout the week. The first one is, when did I last choose silence over honesty? I'm going to talk about that for a moment before I go to the second one. I want you to think about this. There could be a moment where you needed to be honest, but you just chose to be silent. I saw a video earlier where this wife was saying her husband was like, "Oh, what took you so long to get into the car?" And she's like, "Well," in her head, she's like, or no, she got into the car and he said, "What's wrong?" I guess he fed her facial expression and she said nothing. But what she said in her video was, "Well, I could tell you that I had to get myself ready, the kids ready, pack the bags, get everything into the car, while you just have to get yourself dressed and you're sitting in the car chilling." And I immediately wrote a comment. I just said it's interesting because if she were to actually tell the honest answer, he probably would bounce it back. But instead, she just said, forget it and stayed silent. So I want you to think about that. When in your life that you recently or maybe beforehand where you knew you needed to speak up, but you just stayed silent because you just don't want to deal with it, right? Going back, communication, how important it is. Have I ever confused safety with avoidance? Have I ever confused safety with avoidance? Oof, that's a big one. And lastly, what part of me believes conflict means danger? Again, sometimes having that communication could be a triggering response for you. I went through that. So I want you to think about, now you're in a healthy relationship, healthy friendships, healthy environments. How would you work through that? Are you going to run and cut everything off? Because sometimes there could be little parts that shows up as, oh, this has happened before, or could it be that part where they're like, no, no, like let's talk about it, which is shocking, which is hard for you to be vulnerable. I've been there. Which is hard for you to be honest. I've been there, and you want to just revert back and say, no, 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 protection mode. So I want you to think about that because there's going to be those moments as you're going through your healing process, as you're self improving. You're going to have those moments where that healthiness will come up. How are you going to respond? That's why I'm saying like that communication part is so key. So I'm gonna give you a just like a mini way like how you can heal through communication. And I know this is gonna be tricky for some of us, but it does take practice over time. I talked about regulating our nervous system, how important that is. We kind of did a bit of a way of doing that with the grounding techniques of deep breathing. Don't just deep breathe when you need to. Deep breathe as a habit. This is a way that it's going to protect when that moment you need it. but it's also a good way just to regulate your emotions and regulate your nervous system. Use I felt blank when instead of like the accusations. Be clear. I felt boom when you da. Okay. Practice curiosity and don't assume. I'm going to tell you right now that is tricky if you have grown up just assuming things and you've also seen the adults in your life assuming things. I've been there. I've totally been there. My parents still assume things. I'm trying to get them through it. Let empathy and accountability coexist, and normalizing to agree to disagree. You're not always going to agree with what people are doing, what people are saying, but let's start normalizing agree to disagree. All right. So as we wrap up a little bit, I want to give you a bit of a challenge. Again, I'm going to put in the description. I want you to think about one connection you've had or a moment when you chose to walk away. Could you speak to it now? From more of a grounded place that you're in right now, could you honestly say, like, yeah, that was a good decision? And if it was, yo, no hate, no shade. Of course. We're trying to work through all of it in self-improvement. This is successful Sundays. So we are working through all the points. I want you to remember this. Growth is not just a one size fits all, and it's not just one shape. It's multiple shapes. It's multiple dots. It's a lot and it's hard. So working through those moments. And if you feel triggered, please do not answer that question. Just skip to this week's challenge, by the way. All right. So as I wrap up, I have a couple of updates. The time for Successful Sundays may change due to prior obligations. The time may change. I will keep you guys updated to that. It may be a little bit earlier, but I will definitely keep you guys updated with that. I do have a free workshop series. It's starting in August 2nd. If you check my website, you could register for it. I'm also going to plop the link in the description so that you have it and you can register starting today. I also wanted to talk about my YouTube channel. You guys, if you're new here, please subscribe. I'm trying to hit 2,000 followers by the end of the year. And if you can, share my channel to other people that you know are trying to live and love a dope life through self-improvement, personal development, self-love, and all that good stuff, and just taking care of ourselves in 2025. But I want you to remember this as you continue your week ahead. You have a voice. And I don't want you to whisper anymore. It again, I talked about it last week. This is your loud season. Use your voice. Communicate, talk. Protect yourself always. If you feel like there's a moment where you're in danger, if you feel like something's happening and you need to protect, by all means, protect yourself. But let's try communicating just a bit more, especially if you're going through your healing, actively healing, self improvement journey. This is a good time to just reevaluate our communication skills and how we communicate with others. I I will see y'all lovely people next week. Oh, you're most I'm just reading the comments now. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoyed the live Ebony. Long time no chat, man. Long time no chat. Appreciate you. But I'll see y'all next week. And you know exactly what to do. Oh, by the way, before I forget, Tuesday, Dope Life Podcast, brand new episode. This one's going to be super dope. I have a special guest, Anthony Liu. You're going to love it. Check it out. And there's a two-part series. So definitely check that out. And again, y'all know what to do. Walk with peace and walk with love.